Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Tooele Happy Hour podcast starring Jared Anderson and David Weiss. Today's guests, we have Quincy and Kevin from Americans for Prosperity. Now, Kevin and Quincy, would you mind telling the audience what Americans for Prosperity is and about your journey to the border?
Sure, yeah. So Americans for Prosperity, we're a grassroots organization based in 37 states. We're here in Utah. And our whole point is to really just grow the grassroots, empower just the regular citizen, regular voters to make a difference in our country, to build relationships with legislators and to effectuate change that way. And really, driving, good policy and good principles across the state of Utah and our country.
Yeah, we took 10 Utahns down to the border with Americans for Prosperity Foundation.
Pull the mic in.
I'm down here?
Yeah.
Perfect. We took 10 Utahns down to the border with Americans for Prosperity Foundation because we were flipping through the news channels and the border looked different depending on what channel you were on. So we kind of wanted to get like an accurate reading on how we could start to address some of this crisis.
How do you think that difference is made? Do you think that there's certain areas, certain news stations go to perform that difference, or do you think it's just different timelines, or they have a dog and pony show when the news comes down? They prep it to make it look like it's a sanitized system.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, news channels certainly have a different incentive than the everyday American. They want interesting stories. They want to enlarge the crisis or decrease the crisis depending on the political bent to the channel. But Americans, we have a vested interest in securing our border and making sure that there are legal pathways and that people that want to get jobs or are seeking asylum can get in safely and are integrated into our society, right?
Yeah, and this does feel like this is one of those crazy subjects that is kind of a make or break, because we're looking at the Democrats coming out of Chicago. You've got some of those inner city communities that are in outright protest about the Democrat Party bringing immigrants in. So do you think that this is maybe the Democrats are reaching too far and going to do some serious damage to themselves in the upcoming race?
The immigration issue, I think, in general, has been a bipartisan failure. This is, political football that each party, promises, elect us and we're going to fix this issue. And then nobody ever ends up actually fixing the issue, because then it becomes, their rallying cry the next time they're up for reelection, right? Keep electing us and we can address this. Right. I think it's interesting to see, some people are, they don't want the border, more protected. They don't want to build a wall. They don't want, additional security. And then, when you see the people who are coming across reach their communities rather than just border cities, there's this big uproar in these communities. I think that's been really interesting to watch.
A lot of NAMBY.
Right.
Kevin's not in my backyard.
Yep. So yeah, I think that's been interesting. I think that's going to have definitely some political ramifications, at least in those. I don't think that's going to be a national issue maybe for, the Democrats, but I think in some of those cities, it's going to be an issue they have to continue to deal with.
It's interesting when I saw the protests happening, and they weren't the protests we're used to seeing in the inner cities. This was people gathered together, and they were doing what you would picture a Martin Luther King style protest, civil rights style, where they had speeches and they were talking, and that makes me think that they're serious about it, because the Bernie, fiery but mostly peaceful stuff, those are just how do I put this gently? Those are just communists who want to upturn the system to get their own way. That's exactly what they are.
And you brought up Chicago, which is a long way away from our southern border. Here in Utah, we're seeing a lot of immigration too. Just when we were at Catholic Charities, with our Utah team on the border, meeting, immigrants, getting their stories, where they're from. And the next morning we were on an airplane back to Utah, and guess what? 3 of the immigrant families were coming with us, going to all sorts of places in Utah and trying to find a better life for themselves.
Do you think immigration here in Utah is a net positive or a negative?
I mean, I think immigration in general is a net positive for our society. I think, right, that's how this country was founded. People escaping places that were worse for them, and coming here to the land of promise, finding their American dream. There's a absolute crisis at the border with illegal immigration and people not following the proper channels. All of that created by, our politicians in DC failing to address this issue over and over and over. And so, right, the illegal immigration, and then really the control of the cartels, driving this human trafficking, and then, the drugs, fentanyl and all this stuff that's coming across creates absolutely a net negative for our state, for our society. And that's why there has to be, solutions to fix the crisis down there, to streamline the process, to allow those people who want to come here to work to contribute, to not have to wait a decade in line. And then, free up the resources for our border patrol to then, there are a lot of bad actors coming across, but with so many people coming across, it's so hard to, to find them, to apprehend them. But by, streamlining that process, we free up them to go after those bad people, right? The number of people on the terror watch list coming across in the last year is increased, 4 or 5 fold. And those are the people that really need to be targeted. Whereas people who want to come here to work, to better their life, let's create that pathway. We'll know who's here. And then they're contributing to society, and they're not hiding in the shadows.
Yeah. Well, that was it. I read the number one nationality coming across right now is Honduras. Is that, I may be wrong, but
right now it might be Venezuelan. I know last year it was kind of the triangle of Honduras. I can't remember what other 2 countries, but right, you have this perceived misconception, right, of it's everyone from Mexico who's coming across, and it's very few Mexicans. The Mexicans make up the small. They even make a smaller count than Asians do. Yeah.
But so the highest recorded increase this year of immigrants from different countries is China. We're getting a 2,000% increase on Chinese immigrants.
China's saving up money. They're going to South America, taking a little vacation on the beach, enjoying freedom for the first time, where maybe they can go to a beach and not have a, quadcopter spying on them, or, getting a COVID test in the sphincter State Department. But anyways, and then they take that vacation and then make their way north. And that's a big one. Instead of coming over here. So that leads into my other point. The violence that happens to these people on their way here is something that I if we were to hear about a neighbor going through the assaults, that, especially a young lady going through the assaults that they experience on the way here, we would be up in arms and screaming for our city to do something about this.
Yeah, I want to be sensitive to how I say this, but like 50% of the women and children that come through our southern border are sexually assaulted.
Yeah, that's a heavy, women and children.
It's terrible.
And the 50% that aren't are probably,
Well, I've heard 80%, so maybe it's getting better.
it's probably
Well, I'm sure the number's bigger than 50% because
Right,
that's
just
what we know, right?
probably the matronly. Is that a proper way to say it? Ladies, the elderly ladies that may come across, or if they're lucky enough to be traveling in a large group of mostly family members. But anytime they can peel a woman off, that's part of their payment. And for us to offer up a system that incentivizes it and then turns a blind, I should honestly say, not just incentivizes, but pays for that is atrocious.
Right, and a lot of it is due to the confusion of what is our policy. The administration's changed. Right. I don't think you could go down the street here, right, and talk to neighbors and be like, what is our immigration laws? Like, what are they? So that we expect people who don't live in our country to understand it, right? The cartels, especially, right? They control the southern border and anyone who comes across. That's who's making money. That's who controls it.
Hey,
and
Kevin.
Sorry.
Do you think that some of our side might be getting paid off too?
Oh, guaranteed.
I mean, I have no idea.
I've already heard stories that they'll go into Phoenix and get 16-year-old, 17-year-old young men, and they'll say, you drive a van down to the border, to one of the waypoints of the border that we set up, and we pay you $2,500 a head.
And what's interesting to think about, even if nobody on our side, meaning, I guess, citizens of our country, are involved, the cartel is in our country.
Oh, yeah.
We were with Congresswoman Myra Flores, and she talked about her neighborhood in McAllen, gated, nice community. And the cartel lives within that neighborhood. They'll have a raid in the middle of the night, and then the family is gone. Right? These are the cartel's family members going to, church and school with the people in our country. And so there are people on our side living here who are working for the cartel. They are members of it, and, helping facilitate the human trafficking that goes on.
So your journey started where, and walk us through it if you could.
Do you want to start with that?
Yeah, sure. So we brought 10 people from Utah. We picked community leaders, people who would go and tell the story about the southern border. We started in McAllen, Texas. And the first thing we did was we had everybody think about everything they know on immigration. We talked about it as a group, so that at the end we could evaluate, what we've learned and if there's a gap between our current knowledge and our future knowledge. So we started at the, remind me the name of this, Kevin, the Border Security Center. What was the?
It was Border Patrol. I don't know what the facility was actually called, but we met with Border Patrol agents.
Did you guys have to call ahead and schedule?
Yeah, it was all set up, all scheduled. We had to, give them all the names of everyone who was coming, and then, no filming inside and all of that right, mostly to protect the agents, right? They have targets on their head by the cartel. And so, it was a very private meeting with them.
Yeah, and the agents were very honest. They did not hold back on the atrocities they witnessed every single day. And they didn't also hold back on some of their opinions on the current policies. So they said that they would stop at a rest stop with their truck and, grab some snacks, some water, use the restroom. And when they would come back, there would be immigrants just in the back of their truck ready to go across the border with the Border Patrol agents, right? Because, they know exactly what to say, and it's safer with the agents than it is.
You get picked up by an agent, you go into one of the in-processing centers that, the ones that we all should cry about all the time, but they feed you, they clothe you, then they move you into a hotel as soon as possible.
Well, and then you claim asylum because that's what gets
cartels tell you to
stay
do.
here the longest. Yeah.
Now that is one thing that does lead back to where most of the immigrants aren't coming from Mexico, because a lot of these places, let's say Venezuela, I believe you can honestly claim asylum. Crazy communists have taken over your country. They're starving. I mean, the zoos are closed, not because communists hate zoos, but they love the taste of zoo animals.
Yeah, and no wonder there's an increase in Chinese immigrants. I mean, for our asylum, you can claim religious persecution, political persecution, and then persecution on any of the protected attributes of a person. And it's got to be very easy, I imagine, for someone from China to claim asylum.
Well, and at Catholic Charities, sorry, we'll get back to the journey, but that just reminds me of one of the families we spoke with at Catholic Charities was from China. They gave up everything, spent all of their money to get into South America and then make their way up. His sister, I believe, or his sister-in-law was a Christian in China. So right there, right, you've got some persecution. But they were, COVID finally drove them out, right? The concept of freedom there is, most people don't even know it. But then when you're welding, doors to apartment buildings shut so people can't escape during COVID, Like, it's no wonder you can't blame people in some of these places,
No.
right, for wanting to come to somewhere better.
Not at all. I agree with them. We cried about them asking us not to go do things. In China, they welded them in their houses.
Yeah.
And then they put barricades on the outside and used drones and those dog robots to patrol. I mean, China is about as scary a thought of a nation as you can have.
Yeah.
It's the death of humanity.
And so then to be able to put a face to, a husband and wife in there, I think she was a 9-year-old daughter, right? Like, it's easy to villainize people when it's this abstract concept, right? You're like, oh, I see the videos on whatever news channel I'm watching and can't believe all these people are trying to flood across. Then you talk to somebody and hear their journey, right? Like, I don't know that it's a vacation to have to march through, the jungles of South America and give up everything you own in a country to come somewhere. But I mean, I think it says a lot about our country, right? And gives me hope that, like, it is still a beacon to people in the world who do not know freedom. There's as we said, there's a lot of fixes that have to happen to our immigration system, and like our border and our country has to be protected, but we can't not be that place for people, I think, at least to give people the hope of there is a better possibility than what I'm living in right now.
Yeah, I just think we need to manage it different on this
for sure.
side.
Yeah.
We need to, I think if we managed it on this side, we could have a filter that it naturally.
Because right now we're offloading all of our security to the cartels down there, and that's not a win-win for anybody.
If we managed it on our side where we didn't demand a passport. Now, granted, I'm sure China demands some kind of verification for a Chinese person to fly here, but
Right.
why couldn't there's got to be another way to manage it, or that Chinese family honestly probably flew into Venezuela or Ecuador, some of those more friendly states. Why can't our embassy there support them in building a better life there, or in a nation just adjacent? Their walk is shorter, but then again, they're seeking prosperity, and South America is well known for that.
That's sarcasm, isn't it, Jared?
But, it's got to suck being birthed by anything off the Iberian Peninsula. But, sorry, let's get back to your
So there you are.
story. There I am.
So Border Patrol.
Yes.
We also learned, I had no idea about all the technology that went into securing. We've got motion sensors, we got drones. I think we could do more. We could lean in technology more to help support tracking everybody through. And we saw some big, beautiful walls while we were there. There's a lot that goes in to securing. It's not just build a wall, right? It's hundreds of things that.
Yeah.
That sounds expensive. Sounds expensive, and I think I know who's paying for it.
Oh yeah, but I think less expensive than paying for education and Social Security and all the immigrant perks that you can,
Do you have to pay someone Social Security if they
not
come in?
Social Security. You pay for education, and I think there's what's the other benefit they can get, Kevin? We talked about this on Monday.
Yeah. I can't even remember.
Is it like Medicaid or?
There's so if you claim asylum, you're technically here legally, and the U.S. and the state of Utah has
legal obligations to provide for.
So you're saying that these people get an allowance as soon as they get here?
No, I mean, not an allowance, but the family that came back with us, on our flight, right, they have a young child, so that young child will be able to go to, public school and receive those benefits. Because, right, the system we currently have is you claim asylum, and then, all right, now you're working through the 4 or 5 year process. And
Now I'm feeling really bad for that kid, though.
For the public school.
Yeah, send them to public school. Dang. Anyways, go on. I'm sorry.
So just whatever benefits that person would be eligible for here as, a legal, person in the country, they qualify for the time being.
So they're getting an allowance. They've got to be getting an allowance.
I have no idea if there's, money being actually handed out. I couldn't even speak to that.
Look, it is a tough situation.
Yeah.
And there's probably a million ways that we could design a passive filter. I'll be honest. I don't like the idea of building a wall, mainly because, the Democrats are going to try to ensure that wall's going to be our prison walls, and what are we offering, or what I don't need to ask what the Central and South American nations have done to make it so attractive to come here. But, Canada didn't have to build a wall. Now, granted, Mexico has a wall on its southern border, but we're not supposed to talk about that, I don't think. Anyways, go back to your...
Well, one thing I was shocked that border security mentioned was that they don't rely on walls to keep people out. No. And anyone with logic can say, like, oh, you can climb a wall or you can bring a ladder.
Or they just bring an oxyacetylene torch, cut it.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So Border Patrol did say walls were helpful to them because, like, the motion sensors of the drones would flag someone at the wall. Border security would be able to get out to that location in time while they were trying to, navigate the wall. So that, I think they said it was helpful for them that way.
Yeah, it really helps you kind of guide the migration patterns and slow people down as they do cross so that apprehensions are easier. But yeah, I mean, they specifically told us, a 3,000-mile long wall across the southern border is not a solution. And even like you go see the walls and you imagine, oh, the wall is on our southern border. And the reality is it's several miles inland sometimes. And we're driving around in a tour bus crossing through gates and walls. And we're like, are we going into Mexico? I'm not legally allowed to be here right now. We don't have our documents. But it's several miles inland, and then another section of the wall starts. And so, right, like a wall is a very useful thing. And I think Border Patrol and, our border security should have, some direction in where are these most needed, where are they most necessary. But then really, providing the funding necessary for increased Border Patrol agents, and the resources that they need across the board, whether that's technology, whether that's, a border wall in certain spots. And that's really how we can have a comprehensive solution to securing the border. And then, you can kind of go into addressing some of the other legal issues.
How do we manage it with Canada, though?
So Border Patrol, actually, we asked about that. Yep. We said, hey, like, we were here at the southern border, but what's going on at the northern border? And they said a very, very small percentage of our border agents are up in Canada.
Yeah.
Because it's just not an issue, right?
Well, it's not an issue because Canada wasn't set up by the Iberian Peninsula. Just to put it bluntly, they're not, crazy people.
Well, if you think that Canada doesn't have an immigration problem, it's because they don't look at it as a problem. They all vote for Justin Trudeau, and they are 90% Chinese up there.
I'm talking Canadians coming here.
I mean, but Border Patrol did say that there are, immigration issues at the northern border.
They do, but they deal with it on the interior.
Yeah. If
you're a Canadian who's here illegally, and you get picked up for something, it's addressed then.
Right.
Just like I'm sure Canada does with us.
Yeah.
If we're an American in Canada illegally, and, if you mind your P's and Q's, fly under the radar, whatever. It's just when you commit a crime, it's dealt with then. I think one of our issues is that our Democrat Party has lost its flippin' mind and think that anybody that's an other needs to have money and adoration thrown at them. And so an other comes here and they want to set up all these policies so that, they'll get on the assistant train. They'll get on that. They'll get, special circumstances to be able to go to college, where our citizens who pay for said college do not get those opportunities. And I think that's what's killing it. They've made it to where a natural filter would be, hey, go to America, you're allowed in, fight hard, build a good life. But the fight hard needs to be added in there.
And I think that's the part that we have to focus on in talking about why that is a bad policy, if that's our policy, right? If open borders is the policy that people prefer, you still have to address the humanitarian issue that arises from that being something that, maybe people in our country are promoting, right? You're saying, come here, and then, right, you coming from Venezuela all the way up here is a very harrowing journey, right? We're talking about the sexual assaults on the vast majority of women that are coming up, the killings by the cartel. Quincy mentioned the private property we were at and viewing. That was a water district, they right there on the river, and they had to build, a metal grate from the intake system and over the, last several years, they've pulled something like 20 bodies out of the river, and none of them from drowning. So these are people the cartel is killing. Maybe they were trying to get across without them. And so, right, this is allowing the cartel to control our immigration process is literally killing people.
Yeah, and it was scary at the private property. So we were literally 10 feet away, the river separating us from Mexico, and we could see trails and little paths cut. And we asked the guy that was presenting, the guy that owned the property, said, "Hey, so is the cartel right there? What are all the paths for?" And he's like, "Yeah, no, they're stationed every half mile. They're watching us right now. They can probably hear us. And as soon as we gone, there's going to be people hopping across the river."
So the cartel are like the people on the marathon that hand you the cup of water.
Yeah, I mean, they're the ones facilitating it.
Yeah, they're the batting coach. Hold on second.
Right.
Hold on second.
Batting coach. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if instead of the cartels getting that money, that our country gets the money that these people are willing to pay to come here?
Yeah, why can't we just set up a system? What's the average cartel rate? We'll charge $1,000 less.
Yeah, 20 to
Pay up or down.
$50,000.
All right, 19 grand.
Yeah.
19 grand, come on over.
Well, I mean, there are pieces of legislation that are currently proposed that can kind of address that for people who are currently here and have been here a while. There's proposed legislation to allow this kind of process to legal status, not to citizenship necessarily, but you pay a fine of $10,000 and then there's a whole series of things to then kind of undo the illegality of what you've done and pay back. And then, I mean, you're out of the shadows. We know that you're here now. You've paid back, this, whatever that, amount might be. It kind of gets to that point, right? Where
it doesn't sound unfair. All right. So if you build a house and you have some extra rooms, you don't want to just let people come and stay in them for free.
Right.
And the way I look at it is my ancestors and
well, hold on.
family built this house.
Would you be okay with paying them to come live in it, though?
You mean rent?
No, you pay them to come live in it.
Oh man. Yeah, you got a point.
Mighty Christian of you.
Right. So that's what we're doing right now is I'm literally paying someone's allowance to come live in my house.
And I'm not going to say I'm all for humanitarianism because let's face it, the humanitarian system has been as corrupt and big a failure as we've ever seen of anything ever. I mean, but, I don't want to be an abusive country, but I think we should set up ways to, one, like the Catholic Charities. That's a private organization that's managing it on their side. I appreciate that. I don't like how they lean on the government a lot to force that management onto the periphery, but I still appreciate the Catholic Charities. But I don't think the government should take on a toll for that with other people's money.
Yeah, the government and the community at the southern border, it's changed 100%. The gentleman that we were talking to that is at the private property, he was saying that when he was a kid, it just looked totally different than it does now. And now, he has his workers carry because it's just not safe anymore.
Yeah, well, the transientness of it makes it so that any laws or any thoughts of preserving the environment are out the window. You're just walking through. Who cares, right? You don't plan on coming back. You don't, you know.
Let me ask you this, and this will just be an opinion question, but do you think the border would be safer if we didn't have the government patrolling it and we just let the citizens do it themselves?
Oh, I think that would put a massive toll on those local communities. I don't know. I don't think it would.
Yeah, I don't know that it would be safer. I think it would. I mean, I think it probably put people on our side and, the people crossing probably in more danger. I would not want the people of, McAllen, Texas to have to take on the cartel without like our military or our government. And that's not to say, right, that our government is doing
I was going to ask,
a good job at this, but
they seem to be hindering the people from protecting their property more than they do really assist from my perspective, but I don't know. I don't live there.
yeah.
What if the feds just got out of the way and let the states deal with it?
I mean, right. Maybe that could work. I think there's some constitutional issues with, immigration is a federal issue.
Yeah, they cross states.
But I think what helps address a lot of the issues, right, is some reforms. I mean, you mentioned, paying people to come here, but really, if we cleaned up our immigration system, if we allowed for a smoother, visa process, a lot of these people just want to come here to work, and then they send the money back, but they don't leave because it's so hard to get back in here. That journey is awful, and then we don't know that they're here. But we create this visa system where you can come into the country, you're contributing, you pay taxes on the money that you earn here, and then you can go back to wherever you're from seasonally and then come back, right? And you can allow sponsors to pay for that visa. And that's across the, industries, right? Like you think agriculture, but also the tech industry and all of these places need more workers than our country honestly can provide in those industries. And so that way we're not losing track of overstayed visas, and it clears up the pathway for asylum. Not everyone's claiming asylum. And so then we allow the people who work through our immigration courts and, the attorneys and all those people who are involved in that process to maybe, 6 months is the process on an asylum case and not 5 years. Then we're weeding out all of the false claims there.
Yeah.
And then we're really allowed to go after the bad actors trying to come into our country.
Yeah, it's simple. One, I'm a firm believer of the sponsored visa system, where if you want to, let's say I wanted to hire a person to mow my lawn, I could put an ad in the Tijuana Times, and someone responds, and he or she, they become my responsibility for securing their trip to this side. Whether they pay for it or not, it's still my responsibility to verify them with the State Department, get the visa, the paperwork in order, and then bring them over. And that may deal with housing them as well, or temporary housing them,
Yeah.
And I don't know why we don't have sponsored visas anymore.
And that's right. All of the answers generally seem simple and right, like, why is this not already being done? And that goes back to both parties playing this political football game with, I mean, it's any number of issues that our federal government is in charge of, right? It's like they don't actually want to solve anything. It's just the election talking point the next time around. I will fix this problem when you reelect my
They
side.
don't want their job to go away.
Right.
And
that's the problem, which is why people need to hold their elected officials accountable for these things. They need to be talking to their elected officials about these things. All too often, the only thing people are willing to do to engage in the political process is complain to their friends on social media who already agree with them. You're not changing minds. You're not expanding the message to anybody new. So really engaging yourself in that process. I mean, I think people think generally politicians don't listen. But more than anything, I think they care about re-election. And so to that end, when something becomes a big enough issue and it's an election issue, like they really do listen.
I think they listen very well. They don't act.
Right.
Yeah. They listen because it's all about rhetoric.
Yeah.
Word salad. That's their specialty. I mean, usually we elect the more charismatic, most well-spoken, tall, never the short guy, right?
We're never getting elected.
Yeah. So really, I mean, if you got a dumb population, you get a dumb politician.
Yep.
And then the problem will never be solved.
So enough about public schools, Dave.
I mean, to that end, I will plug our organization, Americans for Prosperity. I mean, that is what we exist to do, to connect people to this process, to empower people, to train them on the most effective, ways to be involved in the process, to educate them on our policies so that they can, eloquently speak about it, so that they can be comfortable talking to their elected officials. A lot of people are intimidated by that process. And so, I mean, that's what we do every single day. We've held 4 events this week, engaging people in this process and in getting them educated and, growing this community. But strength in numbers, right, is the more of us there are, the more we can hold elected officials accountable for any number of issues.
And you're absolutely right. There's an awful lot of talk and not a whole lot of change. But Americans for Prosperity has done a lot of change. We do a tax cut every year. We've done school choice. People that aren't comfortable in the public school system, they're not, thriving there. They can have other options. We've really, I think, made a difference in the community. And it's because, our keyboard warriors are now converted and doing things that actually are effective and make change.
Is there one accomplishment in particular that you want to toot your horn about?
I mean, my most favorite thing that we've, helped pass, I've been with Americans for Prosperity for 5 years, but was this year with our school choice expansion, right? Allowing that scholarship to go to students to be used in whatever educational opportunity works best for them.
Yeah.
If that's private school, if it's, paying for homeschooling needs, if it's paying for tutoring, really allowing, right? Parents pay taxes. We all pay. I don't have any kids and I pay taxes for children to be educated. So that money should be able to be used wherever the best education is going to be received for each individual student. And I think that's huge.
Yeah. And we heard so many heartwarming stories, like kids that were bullied in school and their parents didn't have any other options because they're, middle class. They can't afford big, fancy private schools. But the state now gives them $8,000 to do a micro school or go towards a private school or whatever they want to do.
I'm surprised pods haven't popped up after COVID. I'm surprised that hasn't taken over everywhere. One, it's better for the teachers. They'll make more money doing that because they're not restrained by having to pay for administrator and DEI office holder, and they get paid for their job.
I think you will see things like that, like micro schools, like small pods of education popping up because, money speaks. And unfortunately, right, a lot of people who need that resource for their children cannot afford it because you don't get a break on your taxes when your kid is pulled out of the system that it's paid for. And so by allowing that, I really do believe we're going to start seeing that pop up.
It really needs to, because right now, school's out. And there's an utter waste of electricity, grass, and bricks a block away. An utter waste right now. It is absolutely doing nothing. It provides no service for, if you count it by days, half the year.
Right.
And the other half the year, it just, I don't know, it's kid prison. It might teach them a little bit, but
I think public school works great for a lot of people. I'm a product public school from kindergarten through grad school. And so, but it does not, and I don't think that it has to be, hateful or an attack on public school to acknowledge it does not work for everybody. And so I don't see any harm in allowing this type of program to move forward, and competition in everything betters everything involved in that system. And I think you'll see a lot of improvement within the public school system by allowing alternatives to rise and flourish.
If we were just to await the Department of Education, test scores would rise the next year, guaranteed.
Right. You teach right now to the minimum standard for testing, for things like that. And that there's so many kids left behind because you're not teaching them to, for, these certain skills or for here's your career path. You're teaching to an exam. And I don't think that that's actually education.
Yep.
So my wife's from Brazil, and she likes to reprimand me every time I talk bad about the public school system here. She says, "Oh, David, you don't know what you have. You have it so good. If I had it this good when I was young, blah, blah, blah." And then I retort to her, Oh, honey, the reason why America is so kick-ass is because all we do is complain and try to make things better.
It is
And
a
that is
constant
part of that
improvement.
process.
And we're not children of the Iberian Peninsula.
That too.
I hate to be so harsh on it, but it's coming out of me today. Anyways, no, and we're drifting into a lot of subjects here. We should I don't know, ease up a little. Let's get back to the tour.
So where were we? We were on the
You
bank
guys,
of the river, staring at these
well,
little.
the first one they just barely got down to the headquarters or
Yeah,
whatever. it
border
was.
patrol, and
Yeah.
yeah, learned all sorts of things from.
So
the
they have
agents
like
there.
a little, I don't know, presentation they gave you
Yep.
what to do in case of this, what to do in case. Did they give you any warnings like that? You know,
No, I don't think we were going anywhere where we specifically were going to be in any sort of danger or involved in a crossing or anything. It was a lot of statistics on the increase in the numbers coming across, a lot of data on who it actually is, and kind of what they think are some of the solutions. Right? I mean, they're 3,500 agents short of what Border Patrol thinks is necessary, and then really learning, the wall is not an answer, and a variety of things like that.
In that briefing, do they tell you you're not allowed to carry on the border?
I don't remember anything about that. No.
No, there was a guy that was carrying while he was.
yeah, you guys are in McAllen, Texas. I mean,
Yeah.
if you chose to carry.
So yeah, after Border Patrol, then we went to the private property and learned from him, right? Like what is this doing to the people in the community? What is the effect on private property owners? And then really getting to see, the paths that are created by so many people walking through them, coming into the, crossing the river and coming into the country.
Did he seem like he was a common visit for that tour, or do you think or did it feel like it was kind of spur of the moment?
Well, I really admired this guy. He has done a lot. Like I said, he armed his workers. He built the grate himself that catches the dead bodies. And he really wanted to give back to the community that raised him. So he thought it was he believed it was a responsibility to educate as many people as possible on what was really going on, so we can come back to Utah and then actually do something about it, right?
That's interesting. That it sounds to me like he's a known entity by the border patrol, so they've absorbed him into one of the stops.
Yeah, they work together.
Okay. Go on.
Yeah, there actually was like he'd created this like roundabout area for helicopters and things to land there if they needed to, and so yeah, he's
Got a
definitely working on-
helipad.
Yeah.
So after the water district, we went and we heard from an immigration attorney on all the cases he was seeing, and he chatted with us about like just horrendous like crimes against humanity that people that were seeking asylum, and they just didn't qualify because asylum's so specific. And then I think he said only 10% of people that claim asylum get asylum, and it's a 5-year process. So
what happens to the ones that don't get asylum?
I think
They're
yeah,
returned to
if they're
where they're from. Yeah.
Like within that 5 years?
Yeah. And I could be wrong on the
sorry, I
percentage,
think
but
it's after that 5 years.
yeah. Well, yeah. Once the hearing and your whole, case is
So
the
they
process.
come here and they have to live in limbo here for 5 years. No work visa. So we're not even saying, look, we're going to give you a 5-year visa. Go get a job. Come back. Let's see what you got going on then.
I do think they are allowed to work.
Okay.
Because they're technically here legally, right?
While waiting for this process to come. And I think a lot of people, their understanding was probably like, oh, they, they're waiting to get their, trial and then they disappear. But I believe he said over 85%,
98%.
98% show back up for their hearing, after because people really do want to be here. And I think a lot of them want to be here legally. I don't think people want to, feel like they're constantly on the lookout or running and hiding. And so, I mean, most of them, but the process, right, is so long that it just creates this insane backlog.
Why do you think, as a nation, we're so timid on immigration right now?
Well, so part of what Americans for Prosperity do, we're really trying to get a feel of what people are caring about, because we want to make a difference with our elected officials, with our policy. And so we have 13 people right now going door to door and saying, hey, like, what issues do you care about? How can we fix this stuff? They bring that back to us, and then we talk about it. We try to do something about it. So obviously, number one thing is the economy, right? But the second thing, and we're seeing a huge increase on the doors in Utah, is the border. So I think, we're hopefully gaining some momentum here, and we can really put pressure, give political cover to our elected officials to go out on a limb. It's got to be bipartisan, right? It's got to pass, and try to address common sense, right? These issues.
Yeah. No, I think our economy is a huge issue for me. The border's an issue for me, but I think it's not that we have a border or that we have people coming in. It's just that we have what feels to me like, it feels to me like a wanted political football.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like the poster child for political football, right?
It's an argument that there are no winners and there are no losers, and you can argue forever. Both sides oppose each other on ideological terms, and it splits innately down the Jonathan Haidt's left-right dichotomy. And so those are the perfect splits, where the trust and the care and the matrix all fits right in there, which is why I think you'll get politicians fighting to keep it the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's part of why we're the West, right? We're not a border state, but I think the West in general is more connected to the border crisis than anywhere else. It's not a border state. And so, I mean, we're taking all of our state chapters over a series of visits. And so, we went to McAllen with 3 of our state chapters just last week, maybe 2 weeks ago. They were in Yuma, Arizona. And so by the end of, the summer or the fall, all of our state chapters are going to have taken this tour, learned all of these things. And I think the states that are not familiar with, the border being an issue, or is this just abstract thing to them, that's where the difference is really going to be made. When those, people go back to, Illinois and Indiana and our state chapters and are starting to talk to people about, like, here's what the implications are, here's the realities, and then getting people to start thinking about it. Because I think a lot of those states, left and right voters, I don't think that it's an issue to, like, in the front of their mind.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't impact them.
Right. Well, and they think it doesn't impact them. Right. I mean, they may not have
Chicago's finding out right now.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the drug implications affect everywhere. That goes across our border, and that goes everywhere.
And that's an animal of a different species there. And how to manage that, I think, is...
So something interesting that cartels do is it takes maybe a couple attempts to get across the border. So people will pay off the cartels. They'll try to, let's say 3 attempts. And then the cartels will be like, all right, that's as many attempts as we're willing to do. Now you're going to either have to pay us again, or you're going to have to take drugs or some other substance that,
Yeah. And that's, it's getting crazy like that. I don't know. Would it be cheaper for us to make investments in these, how do you say, shithole countries and make them livable places?
I think there's something to be said about people have to be willing to fight for their own country. You can't.
Yes.
The answer can't be everyone escapes to somewhere else.
You say that, but I mean, why don't people fight for China? Well, first Mao took away their weapons, and then he rolled out Tiananmen Square.
Right.
A guy with plastic bags stands nothing against a T-72.
Right. And I don't know what the answer is to what what investment our country should be making into these countries. Right. Especially like you can't just send money to Venezuela.
Yeah. How do you,
because that doesn't end up anywhere good.
So apparently we can print money all day and we can ship it overseas. But I think the biggest thing America brings to the table is like the American dream, the idea of freedom, and as a beacon, an example to other countries of success and freedom and all the good things that come with it.
All right, back to the tour. I keep running you guys off of that. So you go to the water district and okay, we left off. You were looking at the mountain and you saw the trails coming down. So tell us more about that experience.
Right. I mean, I think we mentioned it a couple times, right? But that's where, we're learning. The cartel is watching our group. We're probably 75 of us, right? They know we're there. They're watching us. That's where we learn, every quarter to half a mile is somebody stationed to make sure nobody's crossing without their permission and their payment. And then
so they've got like a border guard there.
Yeah.
It was better than ours.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, he's unrestricted by his bosses.
Yep.
Our border guard are probably excellent border guards.
Oh no, they're
They
excellent.
just
But
have the worst management, and
as far as the numbers game, I have no doubt there's more cartel than there are border patrol.
Yep. So then after the water district, we visited a couple, like a park and somewhere else just to kind of see the border and see how that, right. Like we were at a park in Texas, and right across the water was a park in Mexico where you could see people, picnicking and having fun. And it's like, it's also weird to see that dynamic, because I don't think you don't really like picture the border being that, right? Like you could be waving to somebody in another country. So just that was to get an idea of, just how close we are, what the border situation looks like, and kind of the topography of the river and why a wall is infeasible, right? That is not a location you can build a wall and have it be effective. And so then after that is when we ended up at Catholic Charities. And so we got to, hear about the mission that they're doing, and then spend an hour, chatting with a bunch of families who had, in the last 24 hours, had, made it across the border. And then that's kind of their first stop.
And it was like we met people from China, Honduras, Haiti, Mexico, Venezuela. It was a mix of people, and they had this big room, right? Hundreds of people just like laying on the floor waiting for that, bus stop or that plane ride out.
Hey, did you see anyone from El Salvador while you were there?
I don't think so. Do you remember?
No, I mean, not that I spoke to, but I mean, there very well may have been.
Of course, El Salvador's, you could argue, gone draconian in the last 2 months, but they've cleaned up. They have, yeah.
And I think previously, Honduras and El Salvador, and then a third country right around there were where most of those migrant trains were coming from. And now what you're really seeing is a majority from Venezuela.
Yeah, and Venezuela's. And what makes me wonder is why Venezuela picked back up, because they had kind of gone quiet for a minute. And then something's happened. I don't know. I need to dig into it. Venezuela's a sad story. What was your takeaway from like the parks and seeing these trails and that? Was it your thoughts? What were your takeaways from that?
I think for me, it was just kind of like surprise actually seeing it. You don't really know what the border looks like. I was shocked at how close Mexico is in some place. The river was 50 feet wide maybe in that spot. And so shocking to me that honestly, that more people aren't, figuring out a way to get across that small stretch of water.
Isn't like Juarez and El Paso, if you looked at it from the sky, would look like the same city?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, except, one's brick and one's plywood predominantly, but looks like the same city.
I forget what city is right across from McAllen, but right, even a lot of people in McAllen go to work in the Mexican city.
Yeah, they cross every day.
And people come back and forth.
Yeah.
You can get a special pass to go back and forth, and then like in an express lane. Hey, Kevin, let me ask you this. If the cartel wasn't there guarding the border, do you think more people would come through?
Ooh.
I honestly have no idea. My thought would probably be no, because I think they're facilitating that and encouraging people to do it.
They're recruiting.
right? I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry for the cartels, and so,
But it's pay to play. I mean, it's not free to cross.
right? But they're paying the cartels, and so that's why the cartel is very active in the human trafficking aspect of all of this. That people think the drug trade is where the cartel is making most of their money, and the vast majority of it is coming from getting people across the
Human
border.
trafficking.
And so I think, and they use the confusing process at our border to then confuse people who, right, or in all these other countries to encourage them to make, or yeah, it's just this much money and we can get you across. Like these people don't know, right? And I think a lot of it has to do with the cartel. I mean, that's just a guess. I have honestly no idea, but to me, I think, right, they are promoting it and they are facilitating it. And right, they have the weaponry, the knowledge of what the ground looks like to really, guide people through that process.
And a clear mission.
Right.
And their bosses have given them a clear mission.
Yeah.
Collect money, get them across. Yeah, we're being assaulted by a dog in a minute.
Oh.
Collect money, get them across, make sure nobody who hasn't paid goes.
Right.
And ours have a confusing mission.
Right. Yeah. And it changes every
Protect this
4
place.
years.
Yeah. Protect this place, except on, second Tuesdays. And,
right.
and it's sad. It's sad that this is something to reflect on,
Yeah.
folks. The strongest military on earth, the wealthiest nation in the history of humanity. Probably the wealthiest nation, if you combine all of previous humanity combined, is ran by dog shit. That's something to reflect on. I can't imagine anywhere else has this.
Well, I don't know, Jared.
Schizophrenic system.
I think it runs just the way they want it to.
Probably.
I mean, think about it. Only the strong get through.
Mm-hmm.
It gives people a goal on the outside. It's kind of like a marketing plan to say, "Hey, we're the beacon of that light on the hill." And if you think about it in a propaganda perspective, it functions. And let's face it, these guys are going to vote Democrat. These people are going to vote Democrat.
Well, the bigger the problem, the more screen time you get. But I don't understand how politicians can go to the border and see, people will send children by themselves, and all the child will have is tape right across with their parents' phone number on them. I don't understand how a politician can look these people in the eye and then, turn around and not do anything about it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, I could picture doing that if I only had enough to send one person, and where I lived was that horrendous. I mean, I could see doing that.
Yeah. And that really hit me too,
But
right? Because
heavy.
yeah, and it's right. Like I said earlier, it's easy to villainize. Oh, it's an illegal immigrant. But when you think about, right, I don't care where you're from, a mother sending a 3-year-old with some strange man, like how desperate are you in that situation where you're at? Mm-hmm. How bad is the reality you currently live in? That seems like the better alternative. And that really hit me when I was hearing those stories from Border Patrol.
That sounds like a case where, okay, you got 3 in the family and the mom can only send one because she can only afford to send one. Maybe if the cartel wasn't there, all 3 could go. But
hold on. Do the cartel facilitate the journey from, say, Venezuela to the border?
That I don't know that the cartel, right, is out recruiting. But I think when you get into Mexico and near the border, right, there's no other option other than to go through the people who are protecting all of the routes. And
that's something else we'd have to look into.
Yeah. I can tell you the answer is yes, just because I know they're in Brazil doing it.
Okay.
And Venezuela is a lot closer than Brazil.
Okay. So they are say a mother's in even a central Mexican city and sends her kid with a cartel member for that half a nation distance. That's still more believable to me or understandable to me than sending someone from, say, Venezuela or Ecuador or somewhere, which is, or especially an ocean venture where they're coming from Africa or Asia.
right.
That's heavy. That is way heavy. So, and Quincy, what was your impression while you went and saw the park? When you saw the physical things, what were your impression?
I think it just humanized it for me. Like I was able to, I knew about the border from a conceptual standpoint, right? Like nothing good was happening. But when I saw the immigrants and I saw how close they were and how the McAllen had friends and family right on the other side, like it really helped me understand, okay, like not only is this politically bad for America, like this is a humanitarian issue that needs to be addressed immediately.
Now, all the people that went with you, were any of them like those blue-haired purple people or
No, so
of that alignment?
nope. Every single person that went with us is, a volunteer with us or an activist with us. Very conservative leaning people, and which is kind of our purpose, was to connect the center right folks with maybe there's more going on at the border.
So
than just
you wanted to pull them away from the demonizing,
right, and just to build the wall and that's it, and really connect people. Like, this is the reality of what's actually going on.
How do we get some of these left-leaning people down there to have the same yet opposite view? I think that's important. Is to get an alignment of views.
Yeah. And I mean, other chapters may be bringing different people. I mean, that's just, those are the people connected with us here, and really who we thought could kind of bring that message back to their own communities and the people that they work with.
Okay, so you guys were continuing the story. You went to the Catholic Charities, right?
Yep, that's where we ended our journey. So,
and what was your impression there at Catholic Charities?
I mean, that's where we got to hear some of these personal stories. Chatting with the family from China, and really,
what was their journey like? Did they express that to you?
Yeah. So, do you remember?
They said it was very tough. They traveled through several different, again, took all of their money, $50,000 to be able to do this. And they're well off in China. Like this, we're not talking about the people that are really, really like suffering the most in China. We're talking about a family who is, could get by, that had the courage to leave. And
where did they leave and go to? Did they tell you?
I think they went through South America. I can't
remember where they flew into, but
probably the Darien Strait.
It could have been Brazil also, because Brazil is cozying up with China again. So it could have been through there.
Yeah. And then speaking with, one of the nuns who volunteers there and works, she was very emotional about this is her every single day. I couldn't even imagine having to do that, but just really connecting with these people. Literally arrive with nothing. Like they do not have anything, right? There's no guarantee that you're actually going to get here. But to be willing to give up literally everything that you have, and you can see it on their faces, right? They're very tired. They're very, worn out, and you can just look at them and see that you have gone through some stuff in the last few weeks to get where you're at now.
And that would be interesting. Like if all those people had like a plan, like here's the plan to come to America that our government offers. You're paying $50,000 within a 5-year period, and you get your work visa.
Yeah, how
you don't get to vote. You don't get to collect Social Security. You get 5 years to work here and live here. I think that would be fair.
How could we set that up in adversarial or close to adversarial nations? Because we can't have them coming into our embassy, because that gets them in danger. Someone in China goes into the U.S. embassy, the secret police nabs him up later, and he's pulling bamboo out from under his nails.
I think you're exaggerating this a little bit. If you travel outside of the United States, you'll notice. Hold on. China. Listen to me.
The guy who in the middle of the night hung a sign up that said shut down the COVID lockdowns, disappeared.
Well, I'm telling you this. If you travel,
disappeared for 8 months.
If you travel outside of the United States of America, you will see Chinese people traveling and vacationing everywhere.
Sure.
And I'm not just talking a few. They're in every country that has
So
tourism.
we see Chinese who go to their own State Department and get a passport traveling. We don't see Chinese to go to the U.S. Embassy and apply for different operations. We don't see that.
No, but what you do is, all right, you go to a trip to Paris and you go to the embassy in France. It's not a complicated process.
Now you're adding in a little bit of toughness. So then they've got to pay for a trip to Paris and then offer to buy their way into the U.S.
I think it would be worth it.
Well, hands down, it'd be worth it.
It's a lot easier than going through the cartel.
Is it attainable? And is it easier than going?
All
through
those
the
people who
cartel?
came to our country paid somebody. It probably wasn't our government.
Sure, but
Well,
how much was it?
My understanding, right? I mean, I know you're talking about what we should do, right? But I don't believe currently you can go to anywhere else other than the country, right? That you're seeking asylum in.
You can't go to
you can't go to the embassy and be like, I have issues and.
You can't
need
go to the
asylum.
U.S. Embassy in France and say, I want asylum in the United States.
It's not that you can't. See, it's this imaginary government bubble we all live in. It's like you can't go across the border without that magical key they call a passport, but really physically you can. And it's so ingrained into us, so socially engineered into us that we can't go across the border without that magical key, the passport. And really the whole world, we can manipulate it to suit our reality if we are able to convince our leaders and the lizard people to let us. So
Yeah, that's
there's
the key.
your problem is, will the lizard people let you?
Well, okay.
We can't do it.
Okay, I'm talking about realism, though. We live with the lizard people. And they have drawn lines on a map, and we have to abide by said lines.
Right. Yes.
So I'm just saying, I wonder if the state, I wonder how it could be set up for the Chinese to, or for any nation, adversarial especially. Because it seems like that's usually a pretty quick way to become an adversarial nation to the United States, is to be a dystopian nightmare. The U.S., usually doesn't hang on to that friendship very long. How could we set something up to bypass the cartel and cripple them?
Well, a lot of this I feel like is, I know this is sort of you're beating a dead horse, but Mexico is responsible for reining in and, actually having control over their own borders.
They are, but the cartels are richer than the Mexican state, which is our fault.
Yeah, that's true. We're the purchasers, right?
Yeah. So that's the U.S.'s fault. So we could go double layer into that. How do we control that? Keep talking.
There's immigration is not the only issue that has to be addressed, and the reality is that the drug war is directly tied to the immigration crisis, and then homelessness and poverty is directly tied to the drug war.
Well, I think the Mexicans that they can't own guns themselves, so they can't really control their government. Correct? Is that a pretty good assessment?
They can own guns. They can't possess them.
Oh, okay, much better.
Now, they can only own certain types of guns, but they cannot possess them. They have to be kept in an armory.
So really,
Unless, of course, you're a cartel lord.
without a Second Amendment, I really don't think any citizenry can provide any input to their country legitimately. So that kind of puts the kibosh on any reasonable assumption of requesting Mexico to be responsible for their border.
Well, and Mexico's tried, and how far do you want to go with this? Okay, Mexico sent their special forces up here to train with our special forces to be interdiction teams. And their special forces promptly became the Zeta cartel. Promptly, right out the gate. Took over almost all of, I think it was the border right below Texas. Quickly became the most violent cartel, as they normally do. Mexico tried it again. those guys started the holistic new generation. Happens every time. Because do you want to hold fealty to a nation that is, let's face it, on the verge of failed state and has been since they had a civil war in the late 1800s? Or there's an option to make big money, to live a good life. You know, do you want to live in the plywood shack or do you want AC? And that's what we're looking at every time. So then there's kind of been the offer or the idea floated, well, we'll send our military down to do it. What complications comes with that?
All of them.
Yeah.
Every complication.
Tell me how a 105 artillery piece firing into a suburb stops collateral damage.
Right. And then that just creates another forever war that
how does the Hellfire do in a favela?
Well, as long as we don't legalize the drugs.
Well, no, honestly, that's one option. But, but I think until then, if we can figure out how to, Trump did have that policy, that stay in the country you're at policy, that I think worked rather well. And that's kind of what I'm alluding to. Can we offer assistance to countries who can offer that asylum?
I think that's a better option than depositing them back to their home country where life is in jeopardy. There's other options there. I mean, you always got to wonder, like, why do the Latino countries go through Mexico and not stay there? I mean, it ain't a bad country if you look past the cartels.
But the cartels run the country. I mean, they do. Cartels tell mayors and governors what to do. The only place in Mexico the cartels don't run is Mexico City. That's it. They run everywhere else. They've got more money than the government. They call the marching orders. They've got bigger armies, more well-armed armies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that all comes back to the answer has to be, right, we can't control what other countries do. And right, we've learned, I think, bad mistakes throughout history of trying to do that. But we can fix our own system. We can address our own laws and make a better system than we currently have. And then we can deal with whatever negative impacts are still coming from, Mexico failing to do anything or Venezuela failing to do anything. But our system, most of the problems right now, I think exist because we refuse to change our own laws. And I think that's where we have to start.
And we seem to refuse to take a sober look at it.
Yeah, right.
Governmentally.
And I do think politicians are a little nervous because it's got to get a little bit worse before it gets better. As soon as there's change, there's going to be confusion. Like we might have a little bit of influx, some skirmishes, but like it's got to change. I think everyone knows that it's got to change.
And it's that political dichotomy football. Every 4 to 8 years, brand new system.
Right.
Well, we might not have an immigration issue anymore if we keep going down the track we are as a country.
That's a good point. We may have a, what do you call it when they leave? Is it immigration? No.
Exodus.
Yeah. The exodus. But yeah, we may have that. Right. I mean, I can't imagine anyone in California isn't looking across at Baja Peninsula and saying, we could give that a shot. Leave Newsom here, see how it goes. I can't imagine how anyone's not. I mean, but then again, they're all flooding into Idaho, Utah, Nevada, Arizona. Yeah,
it just changes our landscape.
Yeah. So, okay. So you guys finished out at the Catholic, the
Catholic Charities, yeah.
Catholic Charities. And we've talked to the guy who runs it up here. We had him on the show once. And he's a nice guy. After that, you guys flew home. Did you guys have like kind of a group takeaway? Everyone kind of.
Yeah.
Yes, we had a dinner and a group debrief that evening with everyone. Some of our immigration policy fellows from Americans for Prosperity, kind of addressed, our solutions and talked about, what everyone's perspectives were. Kind of like, we are now as a lot of everything you've heard from us was kind of the takeaway that night, just humanizing the issue, understanding that what we're currently doing and what we've been doing is not working. So there has to be some change.
Yeah. And then we took it back to Utah, right? We, on Monday, actually, we had this big event. And we actually had, so, the VR goggles. We took a bunch of footage while we were at the border, the 360 view of the border. And then, so the people that weren't able to come to the border with us, I think we had 70 people, were able to take a look at the border through these goggles and ask questions to the people that saw everything. And it was good. We had some pizza. It was a great time. Good community.
No, that's interesting. And it's interesting that you got both sides of the story down there. You got the side with the landowner and the side with the Catholic Charities, which, I mean, that does cover both sides,
Right.
Because you have to look at both sides to humanize it, because both people have an argument. You can't have unfettered without hurting the indigenous populace, but you can't go all crazy about it without hurting the hopeful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think popular sentiment too, like it'll reduce the immigration down to one issue, the wall, or maybe the anti the wall. And that's it's really not about a wall. It's
I know
about,
that it's sad the wall became but it became rhetoric.
Yep.
And the electronics, but how would it be if we didn't even have to have surveillance?
Right.
How would it be if we didn't have to have a passport for it? That someone said, "Hey, I want to go, shopping in Dallas today, and I live in a comfortable place in, Juarez, but I just want to cruise to Dallas, shop, and then go home." But the problem is we have middle ground failed state on the other side of the border, and then worse. That's the crazy thing. Other countries are coming from are worse than Mexico. And to us here, Mexico sounds like a nightmare, but it's either physically safer or more liberal than anywhere else. China's a nightmare. I couldn't imagine living there. Where they track you everywhere you go. Venezuela, I mean, aside from their diet program, it's a nightmare.
Well, I think another important takeaway we need from immigration is there are people coming because life is miserable in some countries. So we can't make the same mistakes as America, right? We have to have a free market, and we have to be able to trust our elected officials and keep it free of corruption.
I think you went a little too far. But the free market, I believe the free market.
I think it's an awesome idea.
Capitalism is it is the only.
It's pulled more people out of poverty than anything else in human history.
Capitalism is the way to liberty. If you want to be liberal, it's the way to be liberal. If you want to have prosperity, it's the only way. It's the only way we know of. There may be a new economic model invented. No, Marxism is not it. Don't even think that. I mean, unless you think waiting in line for bread is good. But no, I think at all costs we need to maintain capitalism.
Yep.
We need to maintain the free markets. Varying degrees of regulation, sure, but we need to maintain that.
Yeah. And in a specific form of capitalism, right? One where the government doesn't pick the winners and losers, and the government
free market
stays out of it as to help those people succeed.
Free market capitalism.
Yep.
That is number one. That is number one.
Sounds like corn syrup in your ketchup.
Well, I believe corn syrup should be allowed in your ketchup if that's what you want to buy.
That's your only choice, actually.
Yeah.
Unless you go to Mexico or Canada.
Just because they can't
Make your own.
Okay, I do have a question though. How come there's 50 million types of peanut butter, but only two brands of ketchup?
Oh, that's a so you.
I think there's 3.
What
You're exaggerating.
The ones I know of, you have Heinz. What's that other one? Hunt's.
And then you just got some off-brands.
Great Value.
Great value.
Yeah, great
Great
value.
Value is probably Heinz with a different sticker on it.
I mean, I don't know of any regulations around the ketchup industry, so maybe that's what the free market
There
has
might
decided we need, right?
There might be old Carrie's
Broke
Yeah,
wife.
you never know. That's true. Yeah.
Carrie's wife may have a
Right.
stranglehold on
Right.
it. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. But yeah, there is. Maybe it's because ketchup is only good for baking on the top of meatloaf, and other than that, it's a waste.
Yeah.
Because there's
It
a lot
doesn't need
more
to be too
mustard.
fancy.
Well, when you get to a certain size, you can lobby your congressmen and senators, kind of like just cut the competition out. It's called protectionism. And we like to call our economy a free market economy, but you know, as I pointed out, you have corn syrup in your ketchup. You also have corn syrup in your Coca-Cola. We're the only country that does that. And it isn't because of free market capitalism. So, you know, we have our issues as a country.
Yeah.
And it's a varying degree of issues for all over the world with their protectionist market plans. But a lot of our products, once they get to a certain size, there's really not much opportunity to compete.
I think the reason corn syrup's a big flex over here is because probably the best corn is grown in the U.S.
Well, it's also because of the taxes on sugar, right? The sugar industry.
Bingo.
Yes, it's because of the sugar industry, but that's also done to protect the corn industry. If we shut down the corn syrup industry tomorrow, it'd probably crash our economy.
And the sugar tax only applies to external imports, but you're only allowed X amount of imports. So you have to like be a sugar company in some foreign country. You come grovel to the congressman and you get like a sugar chit, and that gives you permission to import so much.
Right.
So I mean, it's communism, but
Well, no, it's protectionism 100%. Because they built it up, the Great Depression, they built up the corn subsidies. The Great Depression and 5-10 years after,
Right.
they built that up. And you know, how do you maintain that? All right, you guys, okay if we go through some comments real quick?
Of
Sure.
course.
All right. Okay. O'Malley May says 13K a day are now coming across. I follow Michael Yon on this issue. People have no idea what's happening. Congressman Owens actually went down there to see it for himself. I got respect for the man for doing that.
I think every member of Congress should, and our president should visit the southern border. see
And
what's
our
actually
president.
happening.
And our president.
I don't know if
if
you should
there's-
visit anywhere.
If there's an errant rock, we could have a death of a president falling down on the tarmac. Come on. I think we need to get a nice, fat, fluffy recliner. I'm thinking in the color red. Stoke a fire, put the quilt on him, and just let him stay there for the next, year and a half.
Yeah, maybe Bernie Sanders could lend him some mittens.
They are all about the destruction, demoralization, and dismantling of America and our Constitution. They are absolute communists and pushing one world government tyranny. The Red Cross is literally handing out rape kits to all the women traveling to our border. They care nothing for these people suffering the antibiotic, resistant tuberculosis, child trafficking, and losing thousands of children. Chinese military coming across, cartel and gang violence, fentanyl. Venezuela emptied their prisons and they are all coming here. We are in so much trouble. That is a lot. Well, okay. The rape kits, that stuff's horrible. I want to end the rape. Now, I want to think about this in a different way. What if, before the cartel got to them, we went down and armed all those women coming across with pink M16s and called it rape aversion?
Have you ever thought of running for office?
And then when they come across, in order for them to get their asylum stuff in, they just give the M16 back.
We got until Wednesday. Get him on the ballot.
And then we could put a bounty out for every cartel member's ear. Could have gone with a different body part, but this is a PG rated show. We could give them an extra stipend, right? A little something extra, for your trouble.
I'm not sure if that's the answer.
Actually, I really do believe that bounty hunting the cartel members and getting a stipend for each scalp you can get is not a bad idea, because I think privateering is how our country was born.
Built.
And
we could give them cannons, 50-pounders.
oh, come on, that sounds expensive.
That's hard to lug across all terrain.
Yeah.
They've got wheels.
Thanks.
Stick with the pink M16s.
I like the pink M16s, and we'll call them rape aversion M16s. Program rape aversion. And then we'll let the gun companies come to us bidding to build said rape aversion M16. Come with a little pink bow on it, all the stuff. It'd be beautiful. All right.
Fred says, hello, friends. Hi, Fred. It's nice to see you.
Listening from Vernon. Are you catching anything down there, Fred? Man, I love Vernon. Vernon is where I go to catch good fish sometimes. Chad says, don't trust Quincy. She is his evil arch enemy. And
They got beef.
We don't need to read the rest.
We love Chad.
No, Chad's a good dude. Chad is a really good dude. We've had him on before. And then Dave's wife says Jared would be so fun. If the pink M16s, that's what she's talking
You have
about.
another vote if you decide to.
I think she's trying to encourage you to run.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like the pickings right now are spectacular.
Tell me about it. But anyways, yeah, Utah, in my opinion, has a heavy problem with Republican protectionist policies coming down. We seem to get a lot of those, a lot of different little regulatory laws, and I think these might be right up your alley. Where I'm a small business owner, I get to feel the effects of these every time I turn around. I have to pay to get a waiver to not have employees.
That sounds genius.
I know, right?
That's interesting. I've never heard of that.
Yeah. I have to pay $50 and apply for a waiver to not have employees to maintain
I'm
my
gonna look into
business.
Sounds like we have some work to do next session, Kevin.
Yeah. It's workman's comp waiver.
Yeah.
I have to pay them $50 to have a waiver to not have employees.
Do you know if it's a federal form or state form?
I think it's a state form, but I'll get you guys information.
Yeah, let's work on it.
But I mean, we work on all that kind of stuff.
That's why I'm a handyman, right? Why are handymen restricted to $1,000 job value, but contractors aren't going to show up to your house to do anything for less than 10?
Right.
So we got a $9,000 window where the customer can't get regress for their problems. Why do we have something like that? Those are just Republican protectionary laws.
Yep. I mean, that all falls under, occupational licensing restrictions and things like that. Things we've fought to, roll back. The entire point of occupational licensure is protecting the health and safety of the public, making sure somebody's qualified to do the work they do right. But it's become this protectionist thing. And so, the contractors or the, cosmetologists or all of these people have lobbied for all of these laws to be more strict on themselves to prevent new people from entering the industry.
Just pulling the ladder up behind them,
And we fight that every single year.
I know. But that seems to be, Democrats have their own issues, but that seems to be a Republican issue.
Right. I mean, Utah has a super majority Republican legislature. So every bad policy in our state has been passed by Republicans.
Yeah.
If all these laws had to have a signature of who's lobbying for them, behind them,
right,
so that you could reference those people, then we could figure out where the weak point in our chain is as a species.
I think where the citizens have failed is, and you guys are the answer to that, is where groups get together and say, because you guys are a lobbyist group.
Yeah.
If you boil it down, you're a lobbyist group.
Yeah.
You take a message from concerned people, like the ones I'm giving you tonight. You can say, okay, how do I research this? How do I find it? How do I run it through?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So with like the tax cut, who's going to lobby for a tax cut besides you and
yeah.
me, right? So we
Yeah.
took, 20 of our most well-spoken volunteers and we brought them to the Capitol and they met with their legislators and told them how much of a difference it would
See
make in
how
their
she
lives.
said most well-spoken volunteers? Imagine if I joined the group, they'd be like, Jared,
Oh, you'd be great.
the mop closet. Go. Jared, go.
But I mean, that is
You'd be
really
their
the core of what we do. I mean, that it is citizen
is.
lobbying.
And that's where I think we fail the citizens,
Yep.
where if there's an issue, we need to start coming together as groups and petitioning. Because right now, I've talked to both of my state reps about this, and both have been like, yeah, that is kind of weird because there's so many laws. You're not going to know about a law until you find out.
Right. Until it hits you in the face.
Until you've come across it, And so, and this law was probably, I mean, the two laws, the workman's comp waiver, which is,
Yeah, that's crazy.
it's like bad sack words,
Yeah.
that I have to pay to not have employees.
And nobody has to take responsibility for putting that on the books. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
If I had to sign my name as the individual responsible for lobbying that, I'd be embarrassed.
It wouldn't matter. I think all laws should have, what do you call them? Twilight clause. All laws should. They should just automatically, they should have to be re-upped. Because at least
A
then
lot do, but yeah, not every single one does.
you should have to at least sit down and say, okay, did this
That
work?
doesn't make sense anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Or did it work? Did our intent happen?
Right.
Chicago should sit down and say, did disarming our populace save a lot of lives? And that'd be a long conversation.
Yeah.
They might want to start now for, 2032. But I mean, it's just all these things.
Yeah.
So that's just my impression on that. And I didn't know about these laws until I went and got my business
Yep.
license and got my insurance and had to fill out the taxes, like single payer taxes. Not that we'd ever get that across because I think the government likes to make you bow to them once
Yeah.
a year, just to kind of, so in case you haven't been molested by a Fed, you get it that once a year just to let you know who's boss. It's that abusive spouse thing.
Got to kiss the hem.
But I think a single payer tax system would be ideal. Or not single payer tax,
Flat tax.
a flat tax, single payer tax. I think that'd be ideal. You just pay this much, period. I think corporate taxes are stupid because
Yeah.
corporations can't really get taxed. You can only tax the employees, the owners, or the customers. And the owners aren't giving up nothing.
Yeah. If there was a flat tax, I wouldn't need my accountant anymore. And my accountant could go get an auditing job and audit some of these government departments that need it.
Yeah. He could do other things, It's just a flat tax. Okay, you made this much this year. This is, call the percentage what you want to call it. But it's got to be progressive, which means one side pays nothing, the other side pays nothing, the middle pays it all. And that's what it means, hollowing it.
That wasn't veering off the path of the topic.
I know,
but, hey,
we drifted. But no, I like what you guys are doing. I really do. And
how do people join your
yes,
organization?
how do people get involved? Where do they go?
So the easiest place to see everything we're doing is to join our Facebook page and our Facebook group. So just search Americans for Prosperity Utah. You can join the group, like the page, and then it's easy from there to sign up for our newsletter. We send out every other week, all of our events, all of the things we're working on. And we will have a new website soon, prosperityelevated.com. That's not live yet, but that will be another place to see all of Utah specific.
Yeah. Now, I first met Quincy at the convention. You were there as a college Republican, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you graduate from college, Quincy?
Oh, I'm trying my best.
Yeah.
What are you going to college for?
Political science. So this is right up my alley.
So you should be running for office.
Oh, goodness. That sounds like a job for a better man than me.
I don't know about that.
Okay. I'm going to
Right
go
there.
ahead and put this up on the screen. Bear with me, folks. Remember, 42 IQ here. But anyways, so we met you at the Young Republicans. We met you, the college Republican, and then the other guy who was the young Republican. What's his name?
Mackey. He's the vice chair of the Salt Lake County Republican Party right now.
Oh, is he really? Yeah. Okay, and he's a nice guy too. And we chatted with you guys a little bit and just kind of got your feel for how is the Republican experience in Utah. And as a college student, what school do you go to again?
BYU.
Okay, so you're at BYU. Where are you from originally?
So I'm from Alaska.
Oh,
I have to tell you. So
where in Alaska?
In Anchorage.
Yeah.
Okay. So Alaska is ranked pretty regularly 50th in the nation. And I love Alaska. I don't think it deserves that ranking, but it's tough. Like the government, a little messy there. And then I moved to the best state in the nation, number 1, ranked on the U.S. News and World Report. And I've just learned so much about, balancing the budget, like what that can do to a community, hardworking, that makes the biggest difference in how well run our state is.
As much as everyone gripes about it, I think having that strong religion in it helps that out. I really think it does.
Certainly having a shared
I'm not a
value
religious
system.
person. I don't know if anyone could tell, but I do think that it adds another level of moral responsibility to your brother to it. And I think that helps out a lot. So half the days I really want the religion to get out of politics, but then I sit back and reflect and ask myself, what would we lose, if that happened? Would we lose that balanced budget? Would we lose that brother's keeper mentality that our politicians tend to carry maybe a little too much sometimes? But yeah. So Alaska's on the bottom.
It's ranked 50th right now.
50th in what? In
just the U.S. News and World Report produces a report based off of a variety of factors.
So it's just overall health of a state. Mm-hmm. Okay. And we're number 1, Utah is?
Yeah.
Who's number 2?
Oh. Do you remember?
I think it's one of our neighboring states.
Wyoming?
I think, yeah. The West usually does.
Wyoming's 4 people are extremely satisfied this year.
Kanye West is one of those 4, yeah.
Kanye moved to Wyoming.
He's in
I remember he had that church there. And he's got his new girlfriend that dresses like she's freshly circumcised to church. I don't know if you guys saw that picture, that image.
No.
Oh, I'm going to have to show this on here.
From your description, I don't know if I want to see this picture.
I know you guys got to go, but West and...
Just one more torture session.
The torture is me having to finger peck my way through all this. Oh my goodness, this is hilarious. Where's it at? Okay, well, I'm drifting through everything. She's wearing like the collar looks like it's built out of a 50 cal turret sleeve. Man, I've seen it all over the place.
When you start looking for it.
Yeah, I know.
So when you search Kanye West's girlfriend, you get Kim Kardashian, probably, because she owns the internet.
But yeah, Kim Kardashian. I wouldn't recognize her in a lineup. I don't recognize any of these people. But I did see the picture, and it's not going to show it to me right now, obviously. It's been all over the Instagram and that. But she's wearing this ditty that she's wearing, okay. So picture a sci-fi movie, black dress thing, but she's got like pantyhose pulled over her head like she's getting ready to hold up the bank, but then has this collar that comes up like this, and she can barely see over it, and it's this thick, heavy collar, and she looks like she just got done, with the doctor that 5 days out.
Oh my goodness.
I was like, what is that? But
love works in mysterious ways, man.
Yeah. Anyways, but no, I like what you guys are doing. Again, everyone, I want to Americans for Prosperity, Utah. And it sounds like this is everywhere. And I see you guys at every event I go to. I see Quincy, I don't know, every time I go anywhere with the political message.
Yeah, where there's free food, I'm there.
Yeah. Yeah, the hot dogs at the last convention were pretty good.
You know, I liked our governor a little bit better after I had a hot dog.
I'm telling you. Yeah, that was a little, it was okay. I like that they had the hot dogs where they had cut them a handful of times so they cooked through.
Yeah. Those J-Dogs, they're way good.
Yeah, and then they had all the fixings you'd want in there. You know, whatever you wanted, you could throw on there.
Look, we had them at our last National Day of Action, so you can you can come get them.
You guys
come to our office in Lehigh.
We feed our volunteers very well.
Quincy,
we had Thai food last night.
You have my number, Quincy. I don't know why I'm not getting this.
We will see you next time.
Yeah.
Are you sure you want to see Jared next time?
Chad might be there, so that's something to think about.
Chad?
We'll keep you guys separated.
Yeah. I haven't talked to Chad in a minute, but yeah, I do like Chad. He's your arch nemesis. I'm like, I mean, you invited me, so obviously I'll be on your side in the gang fight.
Okay.
Whoever's giving the food, that's who I'm on the side of.
Yeah, are you the Sharks or the Jets between you and Chad? Which side are we on?
Whichever one wins.
Yeah, I'm on the side that stands closest.
So if you feel like doing volunteer work or getting involved with some sort of a conservative movement that has an ounce of compassion to it, I think this is a good organization to look into.
If you have an idea too, if there's something in your life that government's involved in and it needs to not be involved in, like, please give us a call. We would love to help.
You don't even have to be conservative.
No, exactly.
If you're picturing an issue, we're looking at, you've got a lobbyist group that's a volunteer group. You don't have to go pay for, I'm sure you guys have lawyers around, but you don't have to go pay for a, high price lawyer organization. Jared should run against Cox. Yeah, I'm sure everyone would be running to vote that. If you want to secure Cox's next run, put me up there. The Republican Party in Utah is absolutely compromised. I think our government's too involved in too many things. So it makes it too easy. It makes it hard to not get compromised. The government controls too much. It was never meant to control like this. You look back to the writings of previous politicians, the things they wrote about it. I mean, you could go back to even just like Teddy Roosevelt, and his scope on what he controlled was so minuscule. And I think that kept him honest. But where we've given the government, and it's not just the politicians, I would say the bureaucracies are where, because that waiver I have to sign, that probably wasn't signed in by our legislature. That was probably pushed down directly from a bureaucracy that had marching orders from the legislature says we need this to happen, and they just ran with it the way they wanted and said, well, we'll attach a $50 charge to it, which Utah, that kills industry.
Yep.
That's an industry slayer. That it really is. All right, guys. Thanks again for coming in.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So,
thanks.
And one more time, your website, that's coming out.
ProsperityElevated.com. That should be live in the next month or so.
Okay, so Prosperity Elevated, will you do me a favor and will you reach out to me when it does go live?
100%.
Even if you guys can't come on or don't want to come on,
we'll come back anytime.
To us, great. But we'd like to advertise it because I think we need things like this on both sides of the aisle. We need this ability to, talk to our government.
Yep.
We need that.
Whenever you want us, we'll be here.
And let us know about what events you're going to hold.
Yeah.
And to our audience, please do go on to the Tooele Happy Hour pages, like, subscribe, and give us some comments, some feedbacks. Even negative feedback is feedback, so we'll take it. So definitely subscribe, give us some likes, let us know we're validated.
Yeah. do that. But, let's thank Americans for Prosperity for what they're doing. But, we really need to. I think it's an amazing thing. And and send me the menu for your next meeting.
Yeah, we will. We'll order you something special.
Perfect. All right, you guys. Everyone have a good week. Do we have someone else later on tonight?
8:00. Lady MAGA is going to be here to tell us about how she was kicked out of the Pride Parade.
Yeah. Okay. So Lady MAGA at 8:00. So that's going to be a spicy one. All right, you guys. We will talk to you at 8.